So Michael Butera, I run a boutique consultancy called Association ActiVision. I'm a facilitator volunteer for BoomerWorks. And BoomerWorks focuses entirely on inspiring self-employment. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I hope you'll enjoy it. We're going to do some exercises because, you know, the worst thing in the world is to have people sit there and listen to somebody yap for 45 minutes. That won't help you very much. It was interesting to hear about everybody's move. You know, today is Martin Luther King's holiday, and I think it's appropriate to start with a quote from Dr. King. You know, he said, "If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward." And that's part of what we're all trying to do, whether it's the self-employment aspect that we're going to talk today, or in the things that you've done here at 40 Plus. So here's our brief little agenda. We're going to review the difference between W-2 and self-employment, moving in that direction. We'll have a little discussion about that. I'm sure you'll have some comments. We're going to talk about what this new environment is in which we work. You know, about 60 million people in the country engage in self-employment, either full or part-time. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. So it's really not, you know, something that's strange. It's something lots of people are doing. And we're going to talk about some challenges. We're going to talk about your passions. When it says my passion, it means your passion. And we're going to talk about what the business is that you might be able to create for yourself or work in collaboration with somebody else. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you find clients, because after all, you have to get somebody to pay for this, right? Okay. So let me see. Come on, there we go. So our mission is pretty simple here. You know, we're a nonprofit program of United Charitable, and that's our fiduciary. So those of you who are familiar with the nonprofit business know what that means. And you know, what we're trying to find is steady income and meaningful work, understanding the rules and the new opportunities that our new economy provides us, and you know, good employment, you know, shapes our well-being. When you're not employed, you know, it builds on you after a while. You know, it can even take you down. You don't need to be there. You can be very positive about where you're at and think about it in that way, and hopefully we'll help you along that road today. You know, if for those of you who have reached the magic age of not only 40 but 50, although AARP will take your money anyway, if you don't already have. Yeah. They have a new article, a new study that they put out about self-employment and how it's exploded and what it's going to do in this new decade. And so we talk about a new century. You know, we're already 1/5 of the way through the century. I mean, it's quite amazing. I remember when my first grandchild was born, you know, he's in high school. You know, he's talking about going to college. And, you know, it's really something how fast the world flies. So you might want to go to AARP and take a look at this study, because it's fascinating. It opens your mind to some of the things that are happening these days. So what is this change, this revolution that we talk about in terms of talent? So while the slide's up here, let's talk with one another about this. What's really changed in the world of employment? Tell me some of the things that have impacted you, and then we'll share them with each other. So who can I get first to, okay.
Globalization.
Globalization.
So for example, I was in software development for many, many years, over 20, and now they can outsource that work because of the technology. They can outsource that work to other areas and at a fraction of what I would cost.
Absolutely.
So that's one big change.
Somebody else. Yes, please.
National studies are showing that the amount of time a person stays in a job now is 3 to 4 years.
That's
so you constantly have to re-engage who you are and how you can help other companies be successful.
Other people. How do you feel treated by current employees? Go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, just with the pace of technology, the it's not the technology, but it's almost like 3 to 4 years because you've got to relearn your job. The stuff you were doing it's a whole new way of work now, and it keeps changing. It's not slowing down, but it's picking up. So it's like back in the day, you could be a COBOL programmer and have a career, but today you develop an app, and next year your app's out of date.
Absolutely.
So you got to figure out the new HTML. Yeah.
The magic of artificial intelligence, machine learning. We used to talk about automation. Now these other things have made such a difference in our world. How many of you have ever been in a McDonald's? I mean, I know it's terrible food for your well-being, but it's quick, right? Well, over the last year, they put these kiosks in. You want to punch it in, so forth and so on. You noticed about the number of people behind the counter? Yeah. I started life flipping burgers. I worked for a place called Big Barney's. Yeah, I know. All we did was make burgers and chicken. I ate a lot of it too. That's how I got to look like this. And I'm trying to work my way back down, kind of thing. So, this artificial intelligence, though, is not only taking care of those jobs, but think of it this way: taxes. Now, how many of you have ever used TurboTax? All right, it's an automated program. It keeps asking you questions, you answer them, it changes, so forth and so on. It's actually learning about you as well, right? I mean, you do know it's learning about you as you go on. So who used to do that work all the time? Accountants. So do you really need an accountant to do that anymore? Not for the vast majority of people. If it's complicated, if you have a business maybe. But even that now, I don't know if you've seen the newer versions of these programs. There's accountants. Any of you in the health fields? Okay, I thought somebody said they had worked at a hospital. But in any way, So in any event, think of it this way. A radiologist is a well-paying position. Now, I happen to have a daughter who's in medicine, and she works at the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center. She sees the worst of the worst of the worst. And, people come in and they take what we call, X-rays and MRIs and so forth and so on. How many of them are read by doctors first?
None.
0. All read by machines. The doctor only looks at the actual X-ray or the MRA if there's an anomaly in the material. What's the radiologist supposed to do after they pump the stuff in and look at you anymore? That job could actually go away. You don't think about these kind of things. This is why you have to prepare for the world to come. And globalization was a good point. Anybody else? Some other things that have happened. Please.
There's two things. I think that sort of the millennial generation being a second baby boom, there's more
A lot of
competition. And then I don't know if this is really about the talent revolution, but I actually think that the ACA has made it easier to be self-employed because you can get insurance.
Yeah, you can get insurance. In fact, go ahead in the back.
Oh, I was thinking totally of the way we do banking, because he brought it up.
Oh, yes.
Now you just do it with an app.
Yeah.
You can scan your deposits. Everything can be done in such, this is.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
Swipe, not a phone.
And how long has this magic little thing that we carry around in our pockets been around? This smartphone. Do you know? How long?
13 years.
Yeah, the smartphone itself is only about 13 years old. A little less than that, actually, kind of routine. And here's an amazing little fact some of you probably know. Do you know there's more technology in this little gizmo than what it took to place men on the moon and bring them back? That ought to tell you something about the automation, machine learning, and AI. So that's a big change. That's a big change. Other things, yes, sir.
So, I've got a couple thoughts and I can't really put them together in my head real quick, so I'm going to blurt them out and see if this makes any sense. One thing, too, is that the availability of data very cheaply, and also, then, just in general. Mm-hmm. So through all of that. And then, in front of that, the devices and the search engines and so forth that are available. So it's put it's decreased the value of institutional knowledge inside of an organization. So I think that's one thing. Obviously, that's like well, gee, no surprise, somebody over 40 is complaining that there's lack of respect for institutional knowledge. Okay, so that's maybe self-serving, but I think what that also does is it puts a premium though on synthesis and contextualizing of information, because it is, on the flip side of it, is it's a bit of a fire hose of information and data. So sort of sussing out what's important is important, even though inside a particular institution there's not much of a premium on institutional knowledge anymore.
There's so much data that you don't know what data is important. In the back.
I think in a coming generation too, the whole concept of the universal basic income may change all of these ideas about what is work and how much money you can make on your own time.
The current policy structure was built for a workforce where you did what? You went and got a job.
Yeah.
The employer gave you what? Wages and benefits. That's the way we do it in America. Not the way they do it around the rest of the world, but that's the way we do it in America,
Don't
yes.
forget about the gold watch.
Oh, yes, that's right. You can forget about the gold watch. What a wonderful line. I'm going to borrow that and use that from now on. You can forget about the gold watch. Mine's silver anyway.
Be careful, young people won't know what
I was
you're
going to say, they're not
talking
going to know what that means.
Yeah, the kids won't know what the heck that is. Except I must tell you, my grandson who's 15. Guess what he wanted for his birthday?
Wants a watch?
He wanted a gold watch. Yeah, right. But he didn't mean the same thing we're talking about. In the back, please.
The advent of social media, think back, isn't it long?
Social media.
Facebook, Instagram, and if you're not up on it, it's TikTok and whatever else, and WhatsApp. And I mean, all the different mechanisms, and then what pertains to what? Age group, cohort.
Right.
I mean,
Anybody ever been on TikTok? Okay. I went on TikTok because my 10-year-old granddaughter was on TikTok. And I said to my daughter, that's her mom, I said, what the hell is this? You know, and she said, try to stop it. She says, it's almost impossible. But she said, I can take the phone away. And from time to time, that really works as a great punishment for kids. They don't get their phone anymore, you know. Please, go ahead.
Another really major change is at the grocery store. Instead of you waiting in a line for somebody to pick up all of your bags and everything, at the particular store where I live, there are only 2 of those. Everything else is do it yourself, and you walk out and that's it.
Yeah, amazing, Ron.
And going back to what we were saying, talking about knowledge and information, it wasn't that long ago. If you've been on the job 20 years, you were at the level, you were the master craftsman. Everyone came to you for training, for mentoring. Now, if you've been doing that job for 20 years, you've got as much to learn as the next guy, because there's just so much more knowledge coming through it. It's like you don't really get ahead by your experience.
Right. You know, one of the things I do when I work with large groups is I tell a story about when I first started driving. Now, I don't ask anybody else what their age is, but I'll tell you my age. I'm 74. So I've been around a few decades. All right. When I started to drive, you drove the car into the gas station. That's what it was called, a gas station. But the only thing you could get there besides a mechanic and gasoline was cigarettes. Okay? And, you know, you rolled in, you rolled down the window. There was no button. You know, you had to roll down the window. And a man came, it was always a man, there were no women working in these places in those days. A man came out and he had a little clipboard with him, walked over, and after you rolled down, he said, should I fill it up? And you could actually fill up your gas, you know, for maybe $8 to $10. Now, what's that, 2 gallons of gas or something like 3 gallons of gas? And you know, he used to say another amazing thing. I bet you've never heard this one in recent years. Would you like me to check your oil? Anybody ever hear it? Would you like? And you pop the lever, and he opened the thing up, and he checked. He showed it to you. You know, he put it back in. The meantime, the gasoline quit pumping, and he had this strange little clipboard with this thing that he rubbed back and forth if you used a credit card. Remember, so he put an imprint on it and hand you one thing. You rolled up the window. You know, oh, I forgot this. He washed the windows for you.
Right.
He washed the windows. And then, of course, after you rolled it up, you drove out. Well, today, you go up, you pump, right? You put the credit card in, right? And probably in the not too distant future, the car will drive you into the gas station. You won't do any of what we said. You'll have one of these little things, and there'll be pumps that are done mechanically, and you'll spread this little thing, and then the car will, play some music for you, and off you'll drive. I mean, that's how remarkably changed the world is. We have to think about it. Someone had their hand up, and I missed it. Yes, sir.
If you make this all day, you should visit Egypt.
Well, that's true.
You have to have cash.
Yeah, that's true. There's no credit card. That's right. That's not the only place in the world like that. But,
And they do it in Africa just to preserve jobs.
Yeah.
Just to give people something to do during the daytime.
But use Africa as an example. You rarely anymore find landline phones. Everybody uses cell phones. They skipped over the landline. Think of all the people that worked putting up posts, right? Stringing wire. None of that's in those countries because they've skipped over that part. And of course today we're worried about the wires being in our way. It's not as pretty as it used to be. When the weather's bad, they come down. Or you could live in Howard County where they put everything underground and then somebody digs it up, and you have nothing. There was another hand up. I missed it? Okay.
I
yes.
just have a comment about,
Yeah.
I have been thinking a lot recently about the...
We have a few new people coming in. We're trying to get them
I'm
find a
sorry.
seat. I didn't mean anything else. My pointer was meant to invite them to find a seat.
There's one here.
Yeah, and you can sit in the chair I was using. There's no reason
You want to sit here?
There's one here. There's all,
I don't know who's
yeah.
here.
Make yourself comfortable. All right, we interrupted this nice young lady who was about to add a comment for us. You were about to add a comment for us?
Yes, I'm sorry. This is something that I've been thinking about recently and reading about, and that is the sort of psychology of the workplace today. And it has to do with millennials, and it has to do with ageism. And we all have learned how to manage our bosses. I think that's important. But now we have to kind of manage the colleagues as well.
Right.
And it's a very fine line about, with the younger colleagues, I think. It's, you really have to be very careful because they can be very, very snarky. I don't mean to sound negative here, okay? Because we're not allowed to be negative.
Yeah.
So,
well, be positive. Use the and word or what. It
yes.
could be and.
But
yes.
I think that it's we have different experiences, but they do know, like you said, they do know things. So I think if you look at it maybe as a learning from both ends, and but I think it's really important.
Right. So we were used to hierarchies. This person was the boss, this person was the director, this person was the supervisor, the manager, and all that. Now we have networks that bypass all that. Even if they have a hierarchy in the business, the network bypasses it. The old joke about what happened in the sea office, go to the rumor mill. The rumor mill will tell you faster than the official email will. And the official email won't tell you everything that the rumor mill will, right or wrong, right? The networks can be, and this leads us to this career path into self-employment. So, come on, wake up. There we go. So your experiences are the pathway to self-employment. It's about your skills, whether you're going for a full-time job in the W-2 world or you're going to a 1099 job. It's all about the skills you have and how you repurpose them for what it is you want to do. It's your body of work, all the things you've been there. Filling out resumes these days now, it's important. You need to know how to do a good resume. But I should tell you, this won't be a surprise either. Most easy for me to say, resumes are read by people or by machines? Machines. Read by machines. So you have to know the key words. If you don't put the key words in, the machine kicks you out. You never get a second chance because nobody's going to go through all this. That's a surprising development. So your body of work isn't just what you work, but knowing how to say what it is that your work was. And now we have paid and unpaid jobs. I mean, how many of you volunteered something? Your church, right? Those are unpaid jobs. All of those unpaid jobs are part of your skill set towards self-employment. So think of things that you do in an unpaid way that might become paid in another world. And, you know, what were the components of your career? You know, it's not just what it is, but what were the components? You know, the unanswered question about what you do. So if you were an accountant, what are the things that make up what you do that nobody talks? What's an accountant do? Well, you know, they push numbers, right? But what do they really do? What are they really good at? Think about it for a few minutes. Come up with some ideas. What do accountants really do? They analyze, right? What else do they do?
Finance the budget.
They finance, right? They know about finance. What else do they do?
They know the rules.
They know the rules of their business, right? Okay, they know what's allowed, what's not allowed, legal, unlegal, so forth, illegal, and so forth and so on, right? Yeah. So don't think of the career as the job. Think of the career about in its component parts. What makes it up? What are the underlying things that you do? Someone mentioned they were into videography. Okay, what they're good at is probably editing it. They know how to frame it. You know, there's things that they do that are just more than setting up the camera and letting it roll. That's what we do at home because we don't understand it. Although now you can buy software to do what? Edit it any way you want. In fact, we're beginning to worry because there's actual software that can what? Change faces, places, so forth and so on. So think of it in the context of components of your career, not just the name of the job, okay? And that leads us to self-employment. So we're going to do a little exercise. It takes you about, maybe 3 minutes to do this on your own. Then we're going to do some sharing. Let me tell you about the exercise. I want you to think about this way. We call this the E-R, and the ing, I-N-G exercise. So someone is a writer, someone is, an event planner, but what the skill is not writer. The skill is writing. The skill is planning. The skill is, those kinds of things. If I tell you, then it doesn't make the exercise. You have to kind of work at it a little bit here, you know. So what I want you to do is think about it this way. In the first column, you want to try to think of all your skills, the ings of the world, the things that are your knowledge skills. You know, painting would be, you could be a painter, but your skill is painting or drawing. Get the idea? ERs, of course, are the things we've already talked about. They can sometimes be ORs, as well. Don't get hung up on it. All right. And then in the third column, you want to write down the passions that you have, the things you really enjoy doing, whether they pay you or not. Write them down. And what your hobbies are. What you volunteer doing is a good way of looking at what your hobbies and passions are. Okay? And then the last column is what we can monetize. So we're going to take about 3 minutes, okay? When the magic little sound goes off, you'll know that your 3 minutes is up. I know that's a short amount of time, but let's work at it. So let's do a little bit of sharing with one another to get everybody a little bit more comfortable. Only share what you feel comfortable with. If you have something down there that's really personal, don't plop that on us. We don't want to shock anybody. But let's see if a couple people will share. Let's start over here with the skills you really enjoy. Give us some ideas of the things you really like. We'll follow a couple of you through the process here. Sir?
Presenting and advocating for my ideas.
Good.
Or advocating for new ideas.
Okay. Other skills?
Forecasting.
Forecasting. Good.
Planning.
Okay, planning. All right, we'll come back to you in just a moment. The lady in the back, please.
I had said facilitating
Very good.
and problem solving,
Very good.
organizing.
Okay, good. All right, so now let's go over to the next column. Let's talk about the job kind of things, the ERs. We'll start with the lady and come back to the gentleman for a moment. So after you gave us your skills, what kind of jobs have you had?
What kind of job?
Well, yeah, the ERs.
Oh, like a facilitator.
Facilitator,
Was
right?
one that came to mind. An organizer.
An organizer, right? You converted them well. You did well, right?
Let's see. I can't remember what the planner.
Planner. Okay, those will work. Okay. And you, sir?
Strategy manager,
Strategy manager. Manager, right? Got you.
program manager,
Program manager. Good, good.
and business development.
Business. Okay, business development manager. Now, let's talk about some of your hobbies. Now, we're going to try to relate them to the two things we've already said. So let's see where we go. Why don't we start with the gentleman this time? Then we'll add another person or two. So we.
I don't know if it has relation to what I said or not, but like one of my passions is helping people.
Helping people. That's a good thing. Because you said facilitating and organizing and planning. Those are all things that help people, right?
So that's the only one that's related.
Okay. Well, give me some others. Maybe they'll open doors for us.
Swimming.
Swimming. Okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. At least to keep you healthy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
The helping people. I teach yoga and I'm part of a Galloway group that does run and walk and then group. So training for full and half marathons.
Now, of all these things that we've talked about, is there any way that you can match them up so that they might convert into dollars and cents? Think of something that go ahead, sir.
It's very clear for me because, like, as I said, like, one of my passions is helping people through advocating for electronic payment as a tool for financial inclusion, including people with financial.
And people would pay for that service.
It is paid for.
Yeah, right. Okay. Could you come up with one?
I was just thinking more along the lines of I'm good at facilitating when people need someone to come in as a consultant to plan a program, to design something, to implement something, because I also have a strong evaluation background, so I can take a step back.
So evaluating would have been a skill.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. See, well, you can't be expected in 3 minutes to write everything down. I mean, you're going to have to take this out and work at it another time. Someone else that has some that they're willing to share with us. Anybody else? I don't want to force anybody to share them because they're kind of personal.
Well, I have something.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe you can make something out of this because I feel like there's always some, what's that called, subconsciousness going on.
Sure.
So I have skills I enjoy speaking. The other speaker is the title, right?
Right,
Somewhere or other I threw in painting, passions and hobbies painting,
Good.
and I was like speaker monetized. So
Okay.
I'm thinking there's some kind of relationship between painting and speaking.
Right, probably is. Probably is. I mean, you know, if you like to work with people, you might be able to do all kinds of things in the not-for-profit world. And not-for-profit doesn't mean no money. I mean, it makes them, you know, because 40 Plus is a not-for-profit, but if it had no money, it would have no mission. So it has to have people pay and donate or it wouldn't survive. Same with Boomerworks. We wouldn't survive if we didn't have any money. So you got to think about it that way.
You know, I'm an artist, and one of my things I've written down was motivating and inspiring others, not done through speaking. And as I heard these ideas, because I've always wanted to get into this place called Busboys and Poets. It's art. But I've been wondering, I can't just go on stage and put my art up. But I thought about, you know what, because my artwork, I call it bringing joy to the world through wood art storytelling. I paint pictures of actual real things, but I thought about writing poetry about the city and making artwork as the backdrop on stage. And in a way that could it'll promote the art business, but also the speaking thing at the same time.
Now,
Busboy and Poets has their like open mic night.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Would you speak up?
I said
that place has
Busboy and Poets has open mic night and all that stuff, so you can truly.
There's an opportunity
and
for
you
you.
get there and display the artwork and do the speaking and inspire others.
And they're very low key, like.
Yeah.
So what you want to do with this exercise when you have time when you have time, is really work your way through it. Ask yourself these questions over and over and over, because I will guarantee you that you have more skills than you wrote on that sheet of paper. But you know, in 3 minutes, you just don't have time to put it all together, because we're only able to show you a method. We're not able to walk the full method through. Does that make sense to you? You understand? Because you would make nothing out of this if you don't take it home and use it. And, you know, by the way, you can use this for W-2 work too. But we're just arguing that this is a good way to figure out what you might be able to monetize in the self-employment world. Okay? All right. So, come on. There we go. So where do you go to get help? So SCORE is a good place. How many of you are familiar with SCORE? Okay. It's a good place to go. The Small Business Administration, they have an amazing number of things on their website. These are all free resources, by the way. Free. You don't have to pay a thing for it. Okay. Other gig workers, so they have the Solo Entrepreneurs Network. You can just go on onto that network and you can find lots of people who might be doing what you're doing. Start up a chat with them, you know, see how it goes. There's professional coaching. So Cher is one of the people who is actually the founder of BoomerWorks. She's a great person to deal with. Business launch programs. Here's one for you. And here's another one for you. Okay, so you get the idea. These are just some ideas. Now, I'm going to show you a whole array of online opportunities. Okay, but I want to, before I do that, I want to walk through the ERING thing one more time. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Michael. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to let the people know who are in the room. By the way, Angela, he did a presentation here just last month. So even these resources are people who 40 Plus brings in, and she was right there where Michael is right just now. Yeah. So keep coming back.
And Cheryl has done a bunch of this.
She'll be here in 3 weeks.
She'll be here in 3 weeks. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So
keep
look,
coming back.
We're more than happy to help out. So but you got to make contact. Let me just go through the ER thing one more time. Job functions that you enjoy performing, hobbies and passions. What are those skills? This is the ER exercise, just shown to you a different way. Okay? And here's an example to help you. So creating, managing, adapting, budgeting, collaborating. This is what a project and events manager might do. See how those skills come back in? So you got to put a little bit of effort into thinking about it, or have a coach to help you out, or mentor, or work in groups together to do it. Here's another one, you know, compliance, understanding compliance activity, tracking systems for financials, you know, gathering paperwork and inputting for accuracy, make sure it's right. Those are all skills, right? But those are accountants and bookkeepers. They still have these people floating around. So that's a way to look at this. So when you get to the self-employment thing, we don't have a lot of time today, so we have to kind of run through a bunch of this stuff. But let me give you some thoughts. So you're going to have to figure out who's your target customer for your business. And if you say everybody is, that's nobody. You have to have a target. When I introduced myself, I told you that my target is not-for-profit, you know, boards and executives. That's who I work with. So if you're going to have a business, you have to have a target, because there's just, you know, you just don't have enough time to target everybody. That just doesn't work. That just doesn't work. Then you have to decide how you're going to reach them. How do I reach them? Well, tell me, how do you reach out to people? Give me some ideas. LinkedIn is a good idea, right? How else do you do it?
Facebook.
Facebook's another good one. How else do you do it?
Well, I'll give an example. I help people with resumes, so I have a website. They find me.
Right, websites, right. That's a good one. That's a good, your own website. Other ways.
Network.
Networking of all kinds, right? Absolutely. Other ones, come on.
Find out where they gather. Sports fans of your
Well, yeah,
stadium.
yeah, I mean, if you were going to do something in the sports arena, I'd go to a sports bar,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you don't have to drink. I was a lobbyist for over 40 years. I used to walk, you know, I could tell you something about lobbying that you probably won't believe me about. They don't run around with thousands of dollars in their pocket and hand out money. That's just not true. Now they do some other things that we should worry about. But one of them is you go to a lot of fundraisers. You got a lot of fundraisers. And I used to go to a fundraiser and I'd take out a $10 or $20 bill. That was the extent of it. And I'd walk up to the bartender and I'd make sure that the bartender saw the size of it. And I would look him in the eye and I would say, no matter how many times I come up here, no matter what I say, you give me tonic water and lime. No matter what I say, you give me tonic water and lime. And so I would bring somebody up, because most of these are freebies. You just give the person a tip. And they don't get many $10 or $20 tips. Even though there's a lot of rich people there, they're cheesy. Okay? And I go up and the guy gets, he gets a scotch. What do I get? I get, I'd say, I'll have a vodka and lime. But I'd get tonic water and lime. And so forth and so on. All kinds of ways to do things, folks. That's how you meet folks. And there's like, I was looking at it, you had one to say, don't trust the bartender?
No.
I never,
How clever.
For all the years I did that, I never once had anybody try to put booze in the drink. Not once in all those years. Because you know what? Those bartenders do all the parties.
Yeah.
And they know you're going to come back. And he or she would like that $10. Right? So think about it for a while. So, then there's how to retain customers and so forth. And now we just scratched the surface when we gave some of those other things. There are you can do flyers, right? You do emails, right? Think of all the things you can do, just the old-fashioned stuff. I'm going to tell you one more story real quick. So, I told you I used to be a lobbyist. And I helped elect a governor in Wisconsin. His name was Governor Doyle, Jim Doyle. This is a number of years back now. He's the governor before the governor before. And I needed a favor from the governor's office for an organization I worked for. The favor wasn't a big one. It was him coming to speak. They all like to speak. Right? Him coming, but their schedules are atrocious. So I went in to see his chief of staff. Kathy is her name, and Kathy and I are sitting there. And I don't know how most governors' offices work, but right next door to the governor's office is the chief of staff's office. And so Kathy and I are talking, and she's being very coy about whether or not this schedule is going to open up. All of a sudden, the door opens up between her office and the governor's office, and the governor comes in. And of course, when you stand up, you say hello. And Jim Doyle was 6'6". It's obvious I'm not 6'6". He put his arm around my shoulder. And he said, "What are you here for, Michael?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to get you to do a speaking engagement." Oh. He said, Michael, how many personal thank you notes do you think I get in a year? I said, thousands. I said, thousands. Didn't seem like it. He said, no. He reached into his pocket and he pulled out a handwritten thank you card that I had written him about 4 months before. 3 sentences. The Honorable Governor so-and-so, I want to express my thanks for your assistance in X. If I can be of help, let me know, Mike. He said, "There's one right here." He said, how many of those do you get? And he said, "Well, about a handful since I've been governor." He'd been governor by then by 9 months. 9 months. And he put his arm back around me, he looked down at Kathy and he said, "I bet we can make this work. You think we got the speaking engagement?" Yeah. So handwritten notes. There are all kinds of ways to do this. Online marketing. Marketing is not as expensive as you think it is. Now, LinkedIn ads can be very inexpensive. You can get them for $10. You just got to learn how to use it. And of course, you know, all our conversations and so forth and so on. And I said, you know, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to just run this through. So you mentioned social media, and you got them, most of them there. But here, come on, here's a list. I'll go to the next one. All of these places are places you can go to begin freelance work. Every one of them. Every one of them. And you should think about it. Some of them, you have to pay a huge fee of $5 to get on their site. You know? So I would think about getting some of these. And for those of you who are worried about benefits and the like, think about the Freelancers Union. There's an organization called the Freelancers Union. And what do? They help self-employed people figure out how to get health care, life insurance, and all those other things that you need. And hopefully, you know, you will avail yourself of some of these services. Now, I'll tell you what, I will make these slides available to all of you. Let me tell you how I'm going to make them available, though. You have to do something to get them. You either have to give me a business card, or you take my business card today and email me, and I'll send it to you. Now, I'm going to tell you, you're going to tell me why I do that. Come on, well, no, I don't. You know, I don't expect any of you to become my customer. I guess that's true. I didn't think about it that way. What's the real?
Well, it's conscious networking.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to build your network. I'm going to build my network, and I know something else about you if you email me. You're interested. You listen.
You know how to use email.
You know how to use email. You know how to use email. Yeah, that's right. So that's the deal. We understand the deal. You get also, even the ones we didn't get to see, you'll get all of them as well. So let's wrap up. Now, there's another set of tools that we mentioned earlier, and we don't have time for all these because it's just too, come on. Well, I thought I could get there. Well, okay. Well, whatever I did, we have a blank screen now. So it's been my pleasure to spend time with you today, and hopefully to open up your eyes to the potential and how you get started in the freelance world, in the self-employment world. You have a wonderful opportunity while you're here at 40 plus, you know, particularly as it relates to W-2 work. But as John said earlier on, this is another opportunity for you. And we would love to help you at BoomerWorks, so if you want to do that, let us know as well. And remember, if you want the slides, get my business card, send me an email, you'll get the slides. Otherwise, you'll never see them again. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.